Okay.
Alright, everybody, Super Strider here, and I'm conducting yet another interview with someone who lives, well, he was introduced to me by Hart D. Fisher. Care to introduce yourself?
My name's John Neese, and I'm located in Highland Park. My parents opened a business here about 1955, and today it's, the 14th of November?
At the time of this recording.
Yeah, 2014. So we've been in this community a long while.
Yeah, and the reason I'm recording this is for yet another ethics paper. This for the purposes of the recording, for another paper. And I was, like I said, I was introduced to Mr. Neese by Hart D. Fisher, who, for the guys who follow me on YouTube and stuff, I interviewed back in, I like to say, maybe April. But yeah, I wanted to talk to them about the bike lane problems that they've been having down there. As the fact that the issue is that I'll let you explain it because I cannot words well.
Okay, all right. About 8 years ago, they came by and did a survey and said, "How would you feel about bike lanes?" Well, nobody had any problem with bike lanes. You know, if you want bike lanes, that's fine. But no one ever mentioned anything about taking lanes of traffic out, put in bike lanes. So what that has created is backups. Like people can't, McDonald's across the street, people can't turn left out of their drive-thru anymore because the traffic is backed up 2 and 3 blocks. And we had 2 accidents in July, 1 day apart, because they were trying to beat the turn. And so somebody from street services, we'll just make right-hand turns. And I said, so you're going to make right-hand turns so people can be diverted through the residential areas? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't it make more sense to put 2 lanes of traffic back in? And by the way, there's been a bike route 1 block away from York Boulevard since the 1970s. And don't you think it would be a good idea? It parallels York Boulevard 1 block, and in some areas it's 2 blocks away. Doesn't it make more sense that the bicycles use a street that's a residential street where the traffic is naturally slower and everybody's and it travels and gets people to the same place? I mean, this idea of putting people on busy streets that carry 20,000 cars a day is ridiculous. We have another street here that's Figueroa that carries 26 to 28,000 cars a day, and they want to restrict it to 1 lane. And I'm going, this is insanity. This is absolute insanity. You are creating traffic jams, and that's what they've already done on York Boulevard. Another thing that's people don't realize is impact on businesses. And it seems like the politicians don't care about the businesses because most of the business people in the areas don't live in the area, particularly per se. I have lived here a long time. And so they don't listen to the businesses and the concerns of the business. And if they want to do something, they just go out and do it. So, I mean, we've had a meeting, with town hall meeting. Well, it was all just a big sham. The people showed up on both sides to voice their opinion, and we were going through what the procedure would be on Colorado Boulevard, another major street where they reduced the traffic lanes, and I got really worked up, by the way.
That's all right.
The politicians, he just said, well, what's wrong with you people? Don't you know that I'm the foremost exponent of bike lanes on the city council? And the lady said, then why are we here? Do we get a vote? And he said, no, you don't get a vote. I've already made the decision. And she says, then why are we here? If you've already made the decision. Well, we're just going to tell you what we're going to do. I mean, that lit everybody up. You think there would be some kind of common sense involved? I understand in Ohio that you have used railroad right-of-ways that were abandoned and turned them into bike paths. Doesn't that make sense? Come to Los Angeles and watch people driving on streets where they don't obey any traffic laws. Now, how can you have people that don't obey traffic laws on streets, riding the wrong way on the street, the wrong way in the line, cutting across lanes of traffic, and creating havoc? And now it's like everybody has to be taken care of. Well, we should give free lights to those people that don't have lights. And so a neighborhood council allocated $1,000 for 100 bike lights. I said, that's insanity. So I went down to the local 99-cent store and bought a set of bike lights for $2.18, including tax. Isn't it incredible? Oh, by the way, it had a battery included in it too. Isn't it incredible that I was also able to pay sales tax for less money, much less money than what they were going to pay for 100 bike lights? I mean, makes no sense at all. The whole thing makes no sense unless you stop and look at what's really going on. You know, out here in California, we've had urban sprawl because the farmland was always cheaper, and so you could continually build out. I mean, I remember in the 1960s when there was an article in the New York Times about urban sprawl, and that one day the suburbs of Los Angeles would stretch from San Diego to Santa Barbara, and I looked around and I said, no way, all of those orange trees and avocados, it just couldn't be. And sure enough, 30 years later, the urban sprawl stretched all the way from Santa Barbara to San Diego. But that's the way it was in California. Well, at about the same time that the urban sprawl was taking place, the interiors of the city were deteriorating, and there were a lot of empty buildings. So what happens to the empty buildings downtown? Well, the developers come along and say, oh, well, we can turn them into the housing. Not low-cost housing, not affordable housing, housing. And how do they do it? They take the old buildings, they revamp them and get a change in occupancy, and they're building all of these apartment buildings downtown. Now, the rents right now are $2,500 to $3,500 a unit for a loft. There's no parking. If you want to buy a loft or buy it, this is $700,000, and if you want a parking space, it's another $180,000. So who's getting wealthy off of building up and building how do you so what happens is you have higher density. They're interested in high density. Now I asked the question, where is the water coming from? If we're in such a drought, where is all the water coming to build all of these extra units downtown? And every one of those buildings that once housed the job, there's no more jobs. So what's going on? You can say we're entering the service industry. We are not. We are, but we need jobs. I mean, we have to build airplane wings and things like that so that when our airplanes fly, the wings don't fall off because they're made in a different country, and that kind of thing happens. I mean, you know, all the problems that Boeing's had with their big Dreamliner or whatever. Anyway, so that's what's happening. Anyway, they're building up, and they have high density going on in downtown Los Angeles. And what they're doing is they've come along and said, okay, the next generation of Americans is going to be poorer than the generation that preceded them. This is the first time in American history that's happened. So they're preparing everybody for that. And the developers are putting workspace downstairs, shopping space downstairs, and people upstairs because everybody is so involved in their student loan debt they can't get out, and they're never going to get out. And I just think it's a travesty when you have builders, developers taking advantage of young people who are not sophisticated enough when they're 18, 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, to be able to make a decision on how much debt to go into. You know, out here we have junior colleges. There are kids in junior colleges with student loan debt. That's insanity. So it's a much bigger problem than just bike lanes going in. Nobody's against bikes. Nobody's against bike lanes. What we are against them into residential areas in order to put bike lanes on major streets. That doesn't make any sense to me or anyone else who's over the age of, I think, 40 or so. Not everybody, but most people. So,
I see it as a safety.
I have to say.
Yeah, I see it as a safety issue as well. As
Oh,
what
it's
Hart
huge.
Hart
Go ahead.
has ranted about it in the past, and what he's told me is that everyone who listens to Heart Attack's getting sick and tired of hearing with it. I'm probably one of the few people that are still interested.
Hart told you that they're not interested in listening to it?
No, they're getting sick and tired of listening to him complain about it. They want to hear about other stuff. A lot of the
okay.
That was his most common complaint, from what I understand.
Oh, well, most people haven't had to deal with it yet, but wait until it comes. I mean, and then you find that the government is issuing tax dollars, and that the Bicycle Coalition here in Los Angeles is nothing more than they're set up as a nonprofit, but they're making profits. Tell me something. If you went to a neighborhood council and you could get $1,000 donated for a bicycle light program, and they cost you 35 cents a piece if you bought in quantity, would you go into business? And you don't have to pay any taxes. We've looked up the reports. You go online and look it up. It shows all of the directors not making any money, but they're spending $560,000, I think it is, or $460,000 out of a $640,000 budget on wages. Well, where's the money going? I mean, that's a profit organization. That's not a nonprofit. I'm sorry. And by the way, as a business person, I will tell you that we need more businesses in this country that pay taxes. We don't need more businesses that don't pay taxes, because the government has been squeezing business. They got rid of the manufacturing. They got rid of all the airplane manufacturing out here because it was contaminating this and doing that. And I'm going, wait a minute, you're putting in retroactive laws on when there were no laws. Now, I can understand cleaning it up and doing it, but I can't understand at that time fining companies, whatever they were, and it was a big amount of money every day for not cleaning it up or whatever. I mean, I just remember that, reading about that about 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And remember that those jobs that Lockheed had out here in North America and all those companies were paying big money back in the 70s, like $25, $30 an hour. And I think we lose a lot when we lose sight of what we're able to do. Now we can't fix anything because everything is made overseas and everything's a bunch of junk. It's just very frustrating for me as a business person to see that happening in this country. I mean, we need to be able to take care of what we build, and we don't. You got me on a rant.
Well, let's get back to the interview. I was just letting you talk because obviously I didn't want to interrupt you. But going back to the questions, my next question was, do you support the city council and their decision? I think you already answered that.
No, I don't. They went downtown. They took Broadway, which is I think it's about one of the major streets downtown, and turned it into one lane for like 6 blocks at the cost of $1 million a mile to do it. And then all of a sudden you find developers who are developing these old buildings downtown, redeveloping them for housing, saying, oh, well, we'll do the same thing. Well, what's the purpose of doing the same thing? But to keep people on a 3-mile leash. And that's exactly what a bicycle is. It's a 3-mile leash. So, they're not going to, a developer isn't going to do anything unless it benefits him. And the more constricted people are, I mean, have you read any history about the Spanish when they came to the New World?
The Spanish Inquisition?
Not the Inquisition. No, when they after Columbus and when they arrived in this country, or have you ever noticed when you go back just in American history that the first thing they did was take the American Indians off of their land and put them on a reservation in a containment field? The Spanish did the same things in South America with the Indians. the land that surrounded and contained them in suburbs in a particular area so that they could have control over the native population. And if you go back in time, 100 years ago, it was the company store. You went to Pittsburgh. My grandparents came from Italy, and they were actually recruited to work in the coal mines. And when they got here, they were put in company housing, and they had to pay for their housing and buy their groceries from the company store, and they never had any money. Well, if you concentrate people and you have that kind of control over people, that's what you get. You get total control of the people and how they spend their money, and they're not slaves, but they're responsible for themselves. But they owe all of their money, though. They'll be in the company housing and shopping at the company stores, and that's exactly what's going on here in Los Angeles downtown. No, I am not in favor. There's only one councilman that stood up and said no, and that was Gil Cedillo, because he understood that what they were doing was illegal. That they tried to make Figueroa one lane southbound into northbound on Figueroa, which is a major street, carries 26 to 28,000 cars a day, and the federal government recommends that no street that carries more than 20,000 cars converted into a bike lane route. So he found another path that paralleled it, where it could be a completely open bike lane. But it seems that the bicycle people are continually pushing this idea that they want to be on major streets. And why is that? Well, to constrict traffic and to try to get more people off of bicycles, and they tell you how healthy it is. Well, I want to know. You know, my daughter's a chiropractor, and I asked her, how healthy is it to ride a bicycle? And she said, well, if you're male, it's not. I just thought that was interesting.
Also remembering Hart talking about these types of issues and concerns. And he did mention that one of the council members did provide an alternative, and
yes,
it got shot down. Which I can't understand why it got shot down.
Well, it's not shot down. As a matter of fact, it was a route. It actually parallels about 100 years ago, before there were cars. This guy was building a cycleway from Pasadena to downtown Los Angeles, and he was going to charge, I don't know what it was, but he actually had this cycleway idea. Well, the city or I don't know, county or whoever it was, went back and they owned most of the land along the Arroyo Seco, which was approximately the path of the old bikeway, and they were going to reconstitute it, and they have the money to do it. Well, the people on the bicycle coalition just jumped up and down, and that's not what we want. We're going to do this. We don't want that. We want it to go down Figueroa. But so anyway, that's still up in the air what they're going to do about that.
All right, back.
Okay.
I was about to say I was going to redirect it back to the questions, but you can go and finish your final thought first.
Finish what?
You can finish the thought that I accidentally interrupted you on.
Oh no,
first.
I mean something else just popped into my mind. I was thinking about how they instituted bike lanes on York Boulevard. I'm jumping, but it was really interesting. When they instituted the bike lanes on York Boulevard, they were supposed to do a study, and they were not supposed to do the study in any week that contains a holiday, and where there's construction going on. Well, there was major sewer construction going on for a year, and people were avoiding York and Figueroa, the intersection there. And on top of that, they did it on October 12th, which was Columbus Day. And, of course, they didn't have the traffic that day that they've had on other days of the week. They did it, and the one man, they didn't even put those things down to count the cars. The count is like 20 to 22,000 cars on York Boulevard a day. And
which is not an accurate representation, I take it.
Yeah, they had a man stand out there from 7 in the morning to 10, and from 4 to 6 to count cars at the intersection. on that day, and that was the only intersection they did it at. And based on that, they changed the striping on York Boulevard. And the merchants have been just up in arms because it's diverting traffic into the neighborhood, and most of the businesses, not most of the businesses, if it's a restaurant or something like that, don't get me wrong, if it's a restaurant, they don't get affected like people who are bringing people in from outside the area to shop like we are. We bring a lot of people in from outside the area to spend money, and we send tax dollars downtown. A lot of the restaurants are not in prime time. They're late in the evening or in the afternoon. And they're not affected like we are, like the grocery stores. So,
all right. All right, back to the questions at hand. From what I understand, the City Council failed to speak with local law enforcement as well as fire departments about the ramifications of the installations of the bike lanes, and then they lied about it. Is this true?
And what? Oh, did they? The Department of Transportation absolutely lied about it on Figueroa, and a lady called them out on it. She took a video of how congested and crowded it was at exactly the same time on a school day, at exactly the same time they did. They went out and showed this video, and there was no traffic on Figueroa and no kids in this. And she got up and she says, well, that's all a lie. I want you to see my video. And she made them show the video. As a matter of fact, the police department wanted a copy of that video, and the Department of Transportation refused to give it to the police department. It was just a big lie. I mean, you can go down there and you'll wait 45 minutes to get through that intersection. There's a school, there's an on-ramp to a freeway there. It's very congested. And then to turn it into one lane, that backed people up for 2 hours. Anyway.
I was about to ask, what are your thoughts about this, too?
About that? Well, I think it was it was really something that this lady called the Department of Transportation out on that, because when this whole thing is a big sham. When they go around and they say they want neighborhood input, I want to tell you something. I heard about the meeting. Nobody advertised it. I just heard about it by word of mouth. Somebody said, "Oh, they're going to have a meeting down at the River Center and about the bike lanes." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go. Are you going to go?" Yeah. So there was about 3 or 4 of us that knew about it. We went down there. There was probably 30 to 50 bicyclists down there at this meeting, and everybody's talking in favor of putting bicycle lanes in. And I just said, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense." And we explained our position, but what was taking place was the vast majority of the people in the community did not know what was going on. They still don't know what was going on, even though they know a lot more now than they did 2 years ago. But it's important that people know, and they don't know. And they were just, the people that were invited was the Bicycle Coalition. And of course they showed up in great force. And when other people began to speak against it, 2 or 3 of us, what's going on? There's no opposition. That's not outreach. You need everybody's opinion. That's how democracy works. And if you don't have the opposition, you don't have democracy. And that's a problem. My book, that's a problem. So anyway, we said what we had to say, and it seemed like the Department of Transportation, when they went out and went into the communities and had their sessions and their gathering of information, what they were actually doing was finding excuses for not doing what the people were objecting to. They didn't correct the problems. They just said, "Oh, well, that's not important." If they felt it wasn't important, and it just wasn't important, and we were bringing up things that were very important, how it affected the businesses and the community. Why are the people in the community screaming? Why are we diverting traffic into residential areas? And it's faster to take. Remember that street I was talking about with the bicycle lanes on it? Residential street that parallels York Boulevard. You can go on Waze, click on it at 4:30 in the afternoon or 4 or whatever it is, and it's faster to take that street than it is to take York Boulevard. And York Boulevard, the way I understood, the way the residential areas, in the commercial areas, and then they connected with other ones that would take you to different places. So we could get the traffic. And of course, the streets are smaller in residential areas than they are in commercial areas. And they would take you out of the neighborhood. Well, what they did by turning them into one lane is actually divert traffic into the communities. And that's what's been going on. And it's not good.
The fact that they even said it wasn't important is making me sick to my stomach.
Well, you ought to see how they operate. I mean, you ought to see the people. By the way, just for information, the person that did the design work on this 2 years ago, at that time when it started, 2 years before he was the chief designer, years before he was an intern. So, but they're saying that's not important, and it goes on. That's how they operate. It's like we're listening to you, and then we come up with the reasons why we can't do it. Because we had suggested, well, you already have bicycle routes in place. Yeah, but nobody wants those. He said, what? What do you mean nobody wants them? Well, the bicycle people don't want them. I said, but that has nothing to do with it. This is a safety issue. Now they've got we're having accidents and problems and people without lights on their bicycles, and it's a law in California that they're supposed to have front lights and reflectors and all of this other type of thing. And yet people are still running around without lights and reflectors, and the police have been ordered by the politicians not to cite these people. That's a problem. I mean, somebody just gave the city of Pasadena $127,000 to pass out helmets and bike lights for people who don't have them. I said, wait a minute. You go to the 99-cent store and pay $2.18 for a front and rear light with batteries included. I mean, I think you can afford that. For your own safety, you can afford that. And it should be a law that the lights should be mounted on the bicycles, so there's no question about them being legal, so people can see them. I mean, this thing is changing. It's changing the whole way people out here think. I mean, I drove in to work, and I lived like 10 minutes away, and there are people walking their dogs in the bicycle lanes on the streets. No reflectors, and this is at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's still pretty dark here. And no reflectors, no lights, you don't see them, and I'm going, this is insanity. We have sidewalks. The law says if you have sidewalks, you walk on the sidewalks. And we have people jogging in the street, and I'm going, I wonder why people are getting hit. Did anybody bother to tell them that's why we have sidewalks? It's for safety's sake. And it's a huge safety issue here. But nobody wants to address it. So, okay.
All right, back to the questions. How has...
We seem to be roaming a bit.
So, yeah, we keep going on tangents, but I'm leaving all this in because this is all important. Okay. How has the installation of the lanes affected your business?
It's been a dramatic for us. It's been traumatic because we bring a lot of people in. You know, we're supposed to be on one of the must-see things to do when you go to Los Angeles, the Soda Pop Stop, and we get a lot of people in from overseas. We bring a lot of people into the community, and what's happening the first month? I mean, we were tootling along, and all of a sudden, the sales dropped like 15%. And I'm going, what's going on? And the only thing that took place is the street was changed from 2 lanes of traffic to 1 lane of traffic.
With the bike
We had a fellow come in from Belgium. Now, in Belgium, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of people concentrated in a small area. And he came into the store and he says, why is there all this traffic out here? Well, I said, if you take a lane of traffic away and you only have 1 lane of traffic, it creates traffic. And he just shook his head. He knew there was no reason. I mean, we're not downtown Los Angeles, so it's not that concentration of people. Highland Park is actually a suburb, and we have about 16,000 people in the area.
Traffic shouldn't be that bad.
Pardon me?
Traffic shouldn't be that bad with so few number of people.
When he says it. When somebody from overseas, from Belgium and Holland, starts commenting about the traffic congestion in a residential, in a bedroom community for downtown, that is significant in my book. I mean, they're telling you something. Anyway.
Have you voiced your concerns to the city council about the installation of these bike lanes?
Most what?
I was
I
asking,
didn't hear that.
have you voiced your concerns to the city council about the installation of these lanes?
I voice my concerns about a lot of things. I do it all the time. And you know what? I will tell you, we had a Veterans Day parade I'm a veteran. And we had a Veterans Day parade on this last Sunday. Veterans Day is not what is it, the 9th or the 10th? It's not Sunday, the 9th. It's the 11th. That's when you should have Veterans Day, so that day becomes important. But no, we had a Veterans Day parade on Sunday, the 9th, and they closed the street down. Not only do they close the street down, but they also closed the parallel street, the residential street, behind the store so nobody could get to us. So our customers had to park 3 blocks away to get in, those that were in the neighborhood. That's a problem. As a matter of fact, I called the Thursday before asking questions. I called the Tuesday, the Monday. I called Monday after the parade. I called Wednesday because the politicians were off on Tuesday, so I called Wednesday. I called again yesterday, and I still have not received any response from the council's office. I mean, they're absolutely useless. And by the way, to know our councilman is to know one of them. I mean, he has his hand out. I mean, he's just getting so much under the table money. It's repulsive. And that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I mean, you have the trash collection, and you're getting $1 million. I forgot how often he gets $1 million out of the trash collection thing because it's in his district. And what does he spend it on? He has a lot of personal problems, too, with ethics. You remember, the Los Angeles City Council is a lot, many of them, not all of them, but many of them are ex-state senators and ex-state assembly people, that type of stuff. It's almost as though they come back to the city to retire.
The next question was, what was the council's response to you voicing your concerns?
I'm going to go up there again today. They don't respond. They don't respond. Oh, we're right on the borderline. As a matter of fact, the council district runs right down the alley behind our business here. And one that we're in, there is no response. I mean, he has his people that he likes, and everybody else, he just, as far as I'm concerned, this is my personal opinion, he just doesn't bother with them. When I voiced my concerns over the bike lane 2 or 3 years ago, and I asked for a copy of the report that put the bike lanes on York Boulevard, it took them 4 months. I would go back every 3 weeks, something like that. We still haven't got the information. And I knew what was going on. Finally, I sent a registered letter to the Department of Transportation, the councilman's office, the council. I think I sent one to the mayor too. And I said, I would like a response. I went into the council's office after that. He pushed the button on his computer and it spurted out 2 pages. And that's where I got the information of how they converted York Boulevard to bike lanes by having this survey on an illegal day. They weren't even supposed to have it the way they did it, but they did it anyway, and they changed the lines. So that's what we have going on in this city. They are not responsive. They're certainly not me as a person, because I I jump up and down and I scream, often and loud, about things and how they're handled.
Wait, he just pressed a button, it printed out 2 pages, and it took you 3 months to get to even get them to do that.
It took me 4 months to get that, and he pushed a button on his computer and printed it out and he handed it to me.
Something that would take 2 minutes, they sat on it for 4 months.
Well, they sat on it because they didn't want the information out. Nobody else was complaining. I'm jumping up and down and screaming and telling them this is a bunch of baloney. This whole thing is a bunch of baloney. Tell me if he doesn't have his hand out.
That's not sitting well with me, because I wouldn't be able to fathom the kind of thinking that would bring into it.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, this guy has personal problems. He has. Oh my goodness, he just stuffed the. And this is what was written in the Los Angeles Times. Look up Weezer in his lawsuit and how it was settled. His chief of staff, he said he had consensual sex with his chief of staff, and rather than go to trial, it was resolved, and the thing was sealed. He handed her an envelope, a fat envelope, and that's how he put that behind him. And I'm sorry, but I think the people, from an ethical standpoint, and if you want good government, these people all that stuff should be revealed, not sealed. And that's the way he is. And that's how he operates. And it's a problem. It's a problem. I mean, I'm just briefly mentioned on the trash. His district gets so many millions of dollars a year from the trash collection because it's in his district. And he's used that money for extra staff. He doesn't say how it's used. But I know all you have to do is look up how much his people are getting paid. His chief of staff. Let me go on a little bit. I'm wandering. But the local Democratic bloc in this area, his chief, I think it was his chief of staff and his special events coordinator, moved in and volunteered to work with the Democratic club in this area. And I've talked to people who've been longtime members of the club, and I said to the ex-president on the way out, I said, why are you allowing them in? I mean, they're going to work to make sure he gets reelected next year. He says, well, we needed younger blood. And I'm going, I'm sorry, but I would not let people who work for this council people in anything political as far as the club goes or something like that. And this lady is telling me she went to the last meeting, and it used to be they would vote on how they spent their money. Now they just come out and say, this is what we spent the money on. The whole attitude has changed. Have you ever studied the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany?
I've read bits and pieces where, from what I understand, he did have some good ideas. It's just the execution and his blatant racism just basically clouded it.
Yeah, well, he pushed very hard on the people, and most people are very, that can't be. This is, we live. I mean, I'm saying for people here, we've lived here. We've been here 50 years. It'll get over. That'll all pass over. It'll all pass over. But what I see, it's not passing over. It'll go away. People get these bugs up their rear end all the time. No, it doesn't go away. And they do have an agenda. Anyway.
Have you met any supporters for the bike lanes?
Have I met them? Oh, yes. Yeah. If you go on the internet, look it up, and you're going to see the attacks. They very early on, they attacked me. They didn't know who I was, but they went out there and attacked me for a lot of things, and they completely completely turned everything around. Oh, he doesn't want, he's anti-bike, and, and, and because he's anti-bike, he's dumb and stupid, all that kind of stuff. And they said something about me not wanting bike racks in front of the store here. Well, when they were not ready to install them, I asked them, who approved this? Don't you ask me? Well, didn't anybody ask you? I said, no, nobody asked me. I put bike racks in my parking lot. Nobody bothered to check to see that I had bike racks in my parking lot. I wanted them off street where they were safe, in front of a seating area where if they came, anybody who was on a bicycle came in and sat down, that they could actually watch their bicycles right in front of them. So I told him, no, I don't want it. Well, he could get free bike racks from the city. And I said, you know what? I want you to know, maybe you don't realize it, but nothing is free. Somebody pays for everything. And they were just randomly going up and down the streets putting bike racks in, and they didn't ask anybody. And that bothered me. And where they put them really bothered me, which was right to the entrance of my driveway. I said, you're going to put bike racks in front of my driveway? Doesn't it make more sense if you're going to put them on the street that you put the bike racks past the driveway? People are going to get as close to the curb as they can, make a right-hand turn, and you're going to have people parking their bikes there. That makes no sense. I mean, it's just insanity, the lack of brain work that went into this stuff, and that seems to be an epidemic in Los Angeles. So they attacked on that. They attacked on the fact they just kept attacking anti-bike. They even said that some fellow that I knew, and I called him up. This one guy really attacked me, and I went to see the guy that they said the interview, and he said, John, now I want you to know I'm in favor of bike lanes, but what he wrote was completely wrong, and I asked him to retract it. He never retracted it. They just changed the wording around it. And he told me, he said, that is not what I told him. They even told him that he completely distorted everything, because the two brothers, they were actually the leaders of the bicycle group. One has a bicycle shop, and the other one is in real estate. And he just told me, he said, John, it's not true. You've been here too long to be attacked like that. And the people attack on the internet. And nobody looks you in the eye. They just attack and want to destroy you. And it's pretty easy to hurt businesses that way if you attack without talking to them.
That's why when it comes to, like, if I'm going to or actually tell someone how I feel, I'm not going to hide behind a moniker. I say it directly to their face.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the way it's supposed to. That's the way it's done. But I don't know what's going on today, whether people are so used to texting and not looking at people and not looking them in the eye. And I told them, I said, look, you can criticize me. That's all part of democracy. But look me in the eye when you say it. And look at, and I've been here for 50 years. I mean, I shouldn't have to defend myself over my beliefs. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've been able to accomplish here in the 50, well, we've been here since 55, so that's what, 60 years, something like that. And I was here the day we opened. So we've been a part of this community for a long time, and a lot of those people did not know. And, I don't know whether you're aware of it, but Highland Park has been the hottest real estate area in the country, I think.
Yeah, Hart's been mentioning this in Heart Attack, so I do know some details.
Well, I want to, could you imagine a 500 or 600 square foot house above a garage selling in Highland Park here for $500,000? There's a lady and her husband, and they work at they're both professors, and they worked at the Art Center College of Design. Really, really bright. And these people have been coming in and flipping houses and buying them really cheap, because this was the low-hanging fruit, according to the developers. A lady sat in on one of their meetings, a luncheon they were having, and they called Highland Park the low-hanging fruit. So So it's gone crazy, and these flippers have come in and bought these houses and pushed prices out of the reach of most of the people that were here. And so her question was, you know, the people that live here have been here a long time. There's a lot of people that have been here a long time, are hard-working people. And what you're doing is you're making it unaffordable for them to be here anymore, and they're going to have to move out. So what good is it to have rent control and things like that if you're pushing the housing market for 600 square feet up to $500,000? That makes no sense. You can't afford it. So what are you doing? You're destroying them. And that's the first time. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say, "I am against gentrification." You know, our neighborhood is stable. That's more important than it be stable, and that we rebuild things. We rebuild what we had. So that's another thing.
Were there any severe consequences that result from the removal of the vehicle lanes for the bike lanes, aside from the ones affecting your business?
Well, it's affecting the business. We've had more accidents, more people hit on bicycles. We've had more traffic diverted into residential areas. Yes, it's impacted. Can you imagine residential areas with cars traveling down there faster than they do in commercial areas? Because people are trying to get to where they want to go.
I've actually seen it.
You've seen it. You know. You've probably seen people on bicycles not stopping at stop signs. I mean, even the roadways are not geared for it. The city did nothing to upgrade the road grades. We had a guy last month up on Colorado, he fell on his head because the pavement separated, and his bicycle tire got stuck in that. We had another one on Avenue 64. He hit a bump in the road and flew right over, and they weren't wearing helmets, or, you know, and it was late at night. It was 11 o'clock at night. In both cases, it was 11 o'clock at night. And when they had the picture, I did not see any lights on the bicycles.
You want to hear about danger on streets? Back when I was growing up in Black Oak, which is like a suburb of Gary, Indiana,
yeah.
The street that we lived on actually had it fully paved, like nice and neat. And then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, the city council decides to install sewer systems. So they tear up the brand new street that they put in. When they're done, they did a really shoddy way of putting it back together, to the point where it actually looked, like, to be honest, there were potholes everywhere. People would constantly crash their bikes because it was a street with a bunch of kids on it. And since it's Black Oak, we don't have sidewalks. And lots of people wrecked or damaged their cars just from the potholes alone. It was in poor disrepair, and the city didn't even care.
I mean, we've got, the underlying, when you start looking at what's going on, and I'm giving you my impressions over a long period of time. 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, all of those people that came out of World War II were really concerned, that went through World War II, were really, really concerned about this country and did well. And you look at the Marshall Plan, all those good things that we did as a country. Now they see what's going on, and it really bothers me, because everybody is just, not everybody, but a lot of people are just greedy, and they don't care. They're going to step on you in any way they can to make a buck.
I can't fathom that kind of thinking.
This country was built. I mean, it bothers me. It really bothers me to see that happening. I mean, you can't get an education anymore. We have no jobs for the people when they get educations. And, there are people coming out with masters and PhD, and they can't get a job. I mean, I'm going, oh my goodness. It disturbs me. I am really disturbed by what I see happening. And I especially feel for a lot of the immigrants who are coming here, and they have this vision of the United States streets being paved with gold and a better lifestyle and everything. And my daughter went to, I think it was Costa Rica. That's where she went. During the summer, and there was a couple there, and they said they moved to New York, and they lived in New York for like 8 or 10 years, and they made really good money, but they couldn't save any money. And when they went back to Costa Rica, they both decided that they weren't getting ahead up here, that all the money they were earning, they were spending. So they went back to Costa Rica, and they say, you know, we make less, we're saving money, and we're able to put the money away.
Yeah, from what I understand, New York is actually a very expensive place to live. One of the guys I follow online that I talk to by the name of Lord Cat, he lives up there and has to deal with all sorts of crazy prices and stuff like that. Like when he went to see a doctor for his injured foot, I believe, he had to pay $1,000. And for the same injury where I live, at most maybe $100. Or, well, I injured my foot the same way, I had to pay like $300. And he had to pay $1,000.
Yeah. I mean, what's happened? Tell me something. When we look at medical care, I am, at this point, I am totally behind socialized medicine rather than having the insurance companies, because no matter what happens, they're going to make their profit first. And that's going to be a 30% margin. And I have a problem with that. I mean, I preferred it when you went to the doctor and you paid the doctor yourself, because then it was very reasonable. And then, I mean,
thankfully, I can still do that with my doctor.
you just pay your doctor in cash. I mean, I went to the doctor and I needed some blood work done, and this was a few years ago. And he said, make sure you tell him that you're a cash pay, because I had insurance, but it was a very high deductible because, you know, I'm pretty healthy. I've been pretty healthy all my life. I'm lucky, I guess. But anyway, so I told him that I was a cash pay, and he said, oh, well, you get a 60% discount. And I'm saying, I'm thinking about this, and it was less than most people's co-pay for doing the same work. And I'm going, something's wrong with the system. Anyway.
Well, we got to get back to the interview, because I think we went off on another tangent.
Well, you'll have all this down forever until you decide to erase it.
Oh no, I'm going to be I'll probably just post this online, send the link to Hart so we can send it to you. And it's that way everyone gets to hear all the concerns and everything like that, because this stuff should be heard.
Well, it should be heard. I mean, I went on, what was it, on Chowhound, and I did something. And I just said some things that I really believed in. And it was called, it's under the Obsessive on Chowhound. I don't know whether you've seen it or not yet.
No.
But we get people from all over the world coming in on that video. I saw it, we had to come. And all I'm saying is, this is what's happening. You know, this is what's happening in the business world, and how little businesses are being squeezed out because the big businesses are buying the politicians. And that's what it amounts to. They set industry standards, but the standards they're setting are for themselves and their benefit. It's not for the industry. So Coke and Pepsi and to a lesser extent 7-Up squeeze out all the little bottlers or candy makers or whatever it happens to be by buying the shelf space and controlling the sales.
I can't buy L8s up here because they only sell them around Kentucky.
What's that?
I can't buy L8s up here because they only sell them around Kentucky. I only get to buy them when I go visit my folks for twice a year. And I love that soda, but it's a local soda apparently. And I think I've been to your site and you've had that on the list.
We do have it. We do have A8 one.
Yeah, I love that stuff. But it just sucks that most of the stuff right now, and hell, my current college, they signed a deal with Pepsi so that Pepsi would fund the remodeling of the health center, which none of the students wanted to begin with. And now all you can get is Pepsi products on campus. No Coke or anything like that. You don't get a choice.
Oh, I went to the city of Los Angeles, and they had a Coke machine at the city hall. And I looked at that, and I said, oh, can I bring my soda machine in? I just wanted to know what the response would be from the city officials. And I said, and I'd like to set it right next to this Coke machine. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a contract with Coca-Cola. I said, yes, but I'm a taxpayer, and I should have equal access to the City Hall, all parts of the City Hall, as Coca-Cola.
You
Why
should.
does Coca-Cola have an exclusive? Oh. They had a hard time with me.
They didn't have an answer for you.
No, they had no answer. Well, I'm sorry, we have a contract with Coca-Cola.
Yeah, but I also pay your bills.
That's it. And if I'm paying the bills, and I don't carry, I have Coca-Cola, but our Coca-Cola either comes from El Salvador or Guatemala or somewhere. It doesn't use. We have Mexican too, but it's.
I prefer the Cokes that actually use real sugar, the imported Cokes, like the Mexican stuff like that. I can't stand the high fructose corn syrup stuff.
Well, you've seen what's happened. The university, if you can look up online, the University of Southern California's Keck School of Business, their autumn booklet. There's a story on there, and it's called Sugar-Coated Backs. And they've been using an invert sugar, which is 60% fructose, which is corn syrup, and 40% sucrose. And they said in the article that they've been testing it, and the cane sugar burns as energy, and the fructose is processed in the liver, but the liver doesn't know what to do with it, so it just stores it in that high quantity. So it just stores it as fat. And that's what's causing a lot of the problem. But then when you start looking around, it's not just sodas. It's frozen foods and breads and everything else. The amount of corn syrup used in the United States in the last 25 years has gone up like 3,000%. And then they cut the gym classes out of the school. And the politics, they really disturb me because I said, you're attacking all these places where you can get a tax. But what did you do to the schools? You cut their budget at the same time, and now there's no more gym classes. I went to school, you had to take gym classes in California until you were 21 years old. Now, there is no more gym classes. You never have to take a gym class. You never have to go outside. You never have to run. You don't have to do anything. You can sit and poke on your cell phone. Anyway.
It's losing schools, man. I just drove by, I've ridden by, because I don't drive, by the old elementary school I went to back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's completely closed down now.
Oh, mine is too.
And this was only the span, it's been closed down for like maybe a few years. And I just saw it, and I'm like, when did that happen? Why did that happen? I'm like, this is one of the biggest schools in the district, and it's gone.
I don't know. I mean, it's just discouraging to watch what's going on.
I weep for our children's future.
When I went to school, I went to a public school.
So did I.
And I was very, very proud of going to a public school. My mother wanted to put me in a private school. And I said, no, I like where I am. I like it. And our education was great.
My education was great, too. I was actually in masters I was in honors in high school. And I actually scored so high in the math class that when I started college, they weren't exactly sure where to put me. So they gave me the advanced one, and I slapped through the entire class because it was just rehashing stuff I learned in calculus the year before in high school. And this was a public school.
Yeah. And, oh my goodness, and I'm going, and now they got all this, I mean, here they have all the charter schools and everything. Well, who's behind the charter schools? The ex-mayor of Los Angeles, Reardon, and a guy by the name of Ellie Brode, who's an absolute billionaire. Now he's building charter schools. So they get the tax money, and they get to do with it what they want to do with it. And I'm going, well, what's the sense of having a public school system? I think it was Ben Franklin or Thomas Jefferson or somebody wanted public schools so everybody had a chance. That was the reason for public schools, that everybody could get educated. And now we're going full circle right back. I mean, I don't mind private schools. I don't mind parochial schools. I don't. But I really believe that the quality and the breadth of our public schools schools needs a lot of work, and that should be priority. If you take care of the kids when they're young, they're gonna be productive when they're old. If you neglect them, you're gonna have a problem, and then we're gonna spend it on the midnight mission. So,
all right, I think we've wandered off again. So we got to get back. I still have 2 more questions for the actual interview, so we're going to go to the second to last one.
okay.
Do you believe that the council, which I'm pretty sure you already answered this, may not be listening to concerns of the people, and if so, how?
Well, in Los Angeles, it seems like each one of the council persons takes care of what they want to do in their own district. They're just like little mayors of their own little city, and they do what they want to do, and everybody else just kind of goes along with what they want. And no, some things don't make any sense at all. When Councilman Cedillo stood up and said, no, we're not putting bike lanes down Figueroa because of the number of cars. Not only that, but it carries more cars than it's recommended. It doesn't make any sense. And everybody jumped up and down, and they're attacking him for that. I thought it was completely illogical. But
That's just the one thing I don't understand. People were chewing him out for pointing out the fact, I'm like, hey, this is actually kind of dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't do this because, I don't know, someone would actually get seriously hurt.
that's true, and they have been seriously hurt. So what they do is they go out with Operation Firefly and get $1,000 donated from the neighborhood council. We have neighborhood councils to put the lights on bikes, and I'm going, for $2.18 for a fucking rear light. I'm sorry, but every bike should not come without a light that's sold, and everybody without a light should get a ticket.
Makes sense.
And make sure they have lights and reflectors and safety things, because they don't. Oh my goodness, I've seen so much stuff going on.
I still need to get a helmet for my scooter.
Yeah, get a helmet.
Yeah, I have a light on it. So yeah, everyone will know when I'm coming, but then again, I don't drive at night either, so.
No, it's foolhardy to drive at night at 11 o'clock at night in black clothes with no reflectors and no lights. And that's happened. Somebody cut behind me and went from the curbside, cut behind me, went to the middle of the road. I pulled up, and they made a turn in front of me. They didn't stop at the bottom of the hill where the stoplight was, stop sign. They just blew the stop line. And I'm honking my horn, and I'm saying, that's dangerous, and they flipped me off. And
I've had a few close calls too. I remember a few years ago, I was walking home. I was getting ready to cross the street because pedestrians have the right of way, and the crosswalk line said I was able to walk. I started walking. Almost got hit by a car because the lady was at a red light, decided to turn because it's one of those red lights you can turn right on as long as no one's in the way. She was yakking on her phone and looked at me like I was crazy for getting out in front of her when it said I could walk and pass. I'm like, you're supposed to wait for me. That's law here. And apparently my mom lives, she told me that not all places in America are like that, where the pedestrian has the right of way.
Well, the pedestrian does have the right of way.
Apparently there's some states that don't. And this surprised me because I saw a sign down where my mom lives that says it's informing drivers they must yield to pedestrians, for pedestrians have the right of way. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. This is a law. Drivers should know this. I don't even have a license and I know this. And yet, she said to me, I'm like, not all states do this, so they had to actually point it out for the people who don't yield to pedestrians, which is a major safety issue in of itself. And when I think about it, you're in a death machine that's driving at 20 to 30 miles, even at 30 miles an hour. If I get hit by this, I am going to go flying, and I'm going to get seriously hurt. I think you should yield to the people who cannot defend themselves from the giant vehicle that you're driving. But I don't know, that's just me being sane.
But I also know that in the California, it used to be, I don't know whether it's in there anymore, but it used to be pedestrians should before they stepped off the curb, they should look both ways to make sure that there was no oncoming cars.
Yeah, we're still taught that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I still do that because I'm not stupid, and I yell at my friend Matt for doing that all the time.
Yeah,
Or he would just start jaywalking, and I just like no, and I'll grab his backpack. I'm like, you're not playing human Frogger while I'm standing here. I'm not gonna watch my friend get hit by a car for being stupid.
Yeah.
And I yell at him for it. I'm like, don't do that. There's a reason why we have crosswalks.
That's right, crossing the crosswalks. But you know what they're doing out here? I don't know whether they're doing it in Ohio yet. But out here, they're putting crosswalks in the middle of the blocks without any lights.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't happen around here in Indiana.
Well, watch out. Watch out. This is the thing. They're putting crosswalks where people want to cross, or where they've been jaywalking. So they put crosswalks, and it's up to the cars to stop. And a lot of people don't even know it's a crosswalk there. It just has a sign with an arrow showing a person walking.
Yes.
They go out there and give tickets like crazy. You know, it's $275 for a ticket. And if you don't stop behind the restraint line, and the restraint line is just a bunch of diamonds, white diamonds painted on the street, and many people don't know what it is.
Because it wasn't taught to them. Because
they don't know anything about it. They just do it, pass a law, and then give everybody
and doesn't tell anybody. And yet ignorance of the law is not acceptable to them.
Yes. And then even, you know, do you have bicycle lanes to the left of the car lanes, like between two car lanes in Ohio?
Oh, I live in Indiana.
Oh, okay, in Indiana.
No, we don't even. Oh my! No, from the bike lanes I've seen, they're separated from the actual streets by at least 3 feet of grass on the other side of a sidewalk. Not as opposed to the side that has the street. Then there's the sidewalk. Then there's grass, and then there's a bike lane.
Wow, that's not how it is here. They have bike lanes are out on the street, and there's no separation at all. There's no separation. As a matter of fact, the people that are designing the bike lanes have put bike lanes to the left of right-hand car turn lanes. So there's a car turning right, a bicycle lane, and then another lane going straight ahead. And that's the way they're doing it. I'm going, this is insanity. You're asking for people to get hurt. You're asking for it, and you're designing them that way. So.
Anything else I should know about this issue?
Well, if anything you want to ask, if you haven't covered it, just call me back. Did we get to the last question?
Yeah, that was the last question.
Oh, I mean, you know, people say, well, bike lanes is not a big deal. You know, it works great in New York City. Yeah, well, New York City is 3 miles long. I understand that they've always had a traffic because the city started being built in the 1600s, and I'm sure they have narrow streets. And in some cases, it's easier to get on a bicycle and go from one end of New York to the other end than it is in a car. I mean, that makes sense. But out here where we are, and the way they're designing the bike lanes and what they're doing, I mean, it's just poor design. I've had really hardcore bicycle people that, you know, that have actually bicycled from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. And we've talked about it, and they just said, that's poorly designed. When I've explained to them what was going on, and they've said, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. That's poor designing, very poor designing. And all they're interested in doing is putting bicycle lanes on very heavily traveled streets because it's the easiest way for them to do it, rather than actually work out.
Yeah, actually setting aside the specific lane. They're just tacking it on to something else that already did there. Just remove that because it's apparently easy for them, and I just don't understand that. I'm like,
no, they don't understand it. Like we have through here, we had railroad right away. We've had red car, the street cars right of ways that were abandoned. They're still owned by the city. And this one guy that's not part of the Department of Transportation, is older and remembers all that stuff, went out and tracked him, and he actually set up a route that paralleled a route to get to downtown Los Angeles using all city property, all the way. And they weren't, and it would be strictly a bike path. Now, the way you guys are designing in Ohio makes all the sense in the world. The way they're designing in Los Angeles makes no sense. Just no sense. So I think they have to be very careful how they say anti-bike.
I would agree. You have a website.
Pardon me?
Yeah, do you have a website? Because we're getting to the end and I'm just wrapping up, so.
Our website is customer service. It's sodapopstop.com. That's where we are. If you go on to YouTube. I really encourage you to go on to YouTube and see the videos. That thing went viral. I mean, I will tell you, it went viral a few years ago, and it went viral again. But the first time it went viral, I think we had like 700,000 hits, and there were some people in from
I think I've actually seen that video.
there were some people in from Holland at the time. And I said, oh, yeah, I went viral. We were talking, and they said they saw it. They saw the video, and they were telling me about it. I said, oh, on YouTube. Oh, well, it's called something else in Holland. And we had to come here. And I just said, yeah, I think we have 600,000 or 700,000 hits on it now. And she just smiled. This lady just smiled, and she says, I want you to know that you have more than 1 million hits on it in Holland alone. But it wasn't Cheltenham. It was something else. It was a different.
I kind of wish you had a place like this, or we had a place like this up where I live, because I'm actually, one of my side shows that I do on my channel is I try esoteric drinks and foods and stuff like that, spurred off from Brad Tries by Brad Jones. And I've actually tried some unique sodas. I have found Nazi Cola. I did do an episode on Ale 8 and had my friends try it, because I can only get so much twice a year.
Well, let me tell you, Moxie is not a cola.
I want to try Moxie, though.
Moxie is gentian violet, and it's really interesting because ours are cane sugar. The ones coming out of New England are corn syrup, and they're different. Tastes like a watered down cola. But the ones we have, you can actually taste different flavors in it. You can make it a cola, root beer, cinnamon, vanilla, licorice, black cherry, and after I drank my first Moxie, I had a Coca-Cola, and I was able to pull that gentian violet flavor out of Coca-Cola. I said, oh, that's Coca-Cola's secret ingredient, and I think I mentioned it in an ARP 2 years ago. I mentioned it, and I got a letter from a flavor chemist, and he said to me, in his letter, he said, are you trained, or do you just have the taste? And I said, well, I know I'm not trained. I can't even smell. and he said, well, I just want you to know, we talked on the phone, he said, I want you to know that I have thought that gentian violet was in Coca-Cola for a very long time. So that's what gives Coca-Cola its unique taste.
And I like some of the more esoteric sodas. Like, I drink sarsaparilla. My favorite soda actually is ginger ale, and with all these various types that they have out there, I've just recently tried vanilla, ginger ale, stuff like that. I like some of the more stranger ones that most people don't find conventional, and yet I just can't get enough of. I'm just a little bummed right now that the store right by my house stopped selling sarsaparilla.
Why?
I don't know. That's the thing. I'm like, I wanted to buy it, now it's not on the shelf. They must have discontinued it, because that's usually their excuse. No one was buying it, so we're going to stop selling it. And yet you're still selling Green River.
Oh, by the way, have you tried the Green River?
Yes, I have.
The new one? It's much better than it was a year ago.
Oh, I haven't tried I haven't tried it since they improved it.
Okay.
I did drink Green River. It was all right. My mom couldn't stand it, though. She thought it was the nastiest thing she ever drunk.
That's because Clover Leaf Beverage was making it, and they were skimping on everything. They were using corn syrup. They watered down the syrup and everything. company got it back, and they're making it. Oh my goodness, the Green River was so good. You should get a new one.
I should probably pick some up later when I go shopping.
Well, just look at the label, and if it says cloverleaf on it, don't waste your money.
All right. I should keep that in mind. I'd like to thank you for your time, Mr. Neese.
Oh, you're welcome. If you ever get out here, stop by. I'm here all the time.
All right. Well, this is Super Strider signing off. I'm going to see if I can upload this later today. If not, sometime this weekend. Then I'll send it to Hart so he can send it to you or show it to you directly.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.